This is terrible.
It's the stupidest. I can't. It's an hour's difference. The time zone is different here. Oh, fuck. It's unbelievable. How the fuck can that happen?
Okay, there, that's done. Now, what? Okay, got it. Okay,
pull it up. Okay, A few years ago, we wanted to try to help out with some activist anti-corporate activities, and we heard about this website called artmark.com. And we went there, and they handed us a domain name, gwbush.com, and asked us if we might like to make a website that was critical of George Bush, because George Bush's real domain name was georgewbush.com, and this was 1999, so it was just during the campaign when he was beginning to run for president. And we didn't really know quite what to do, so we went to Bush's website and looked at it, and it turned out to be full of strange hypocrisies. Like, for example, he called himself the environmental governor of Texas, but we looked a little closer at his record and found out that he had actually created the most polluted state in the country because he dismantled the clean air laws while he was there. And actually, that's, I guess, what he's doing now nationally. So we thought, well, this kind of hypocrisy we can easily poke fun at by making a satire website. And we made the satire website. It looked exactly like Bush's, except for a few key differences. Like, there was a photo on the banner. Instead of him and his wife in front of the Capitol building in Texas, we showed him pointing the finger at black people. And this seemed to get him a little bit angry. So the Bush campaign tried to shut us down by sending us a cease and desist letter and by complaining to the Federal Elections Commission. But we were able to just take those threats and send them to the media. And immediately, the New York Times wrote an article, and there were a whole bunch of other articles.
And in fact, one reporter read one of these articles and at a press conference asked Bush, so what about this website, gwbush.com? What do you think of that?
How far should these sites go? I mean, this particular site talks about drug use in your past. How far should these guys go before the plug is pulled?
There's a lot of garbage in politics, and obviously this is a garbage man.
But how far should they go?
Well,
they're talking about cocaine.
There ought to be limits. There ought to be limits. There ought to be limits to freedom. But and we're aware of the site. And this guy's just a garbage man.
So it was all over the place.
Yeah, a lot of people read about it, including a guy who had another domain name called gat.org. And of course, GATT is the Global Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and it's the predecessor agreement to the World Trade Organization. And he said, if you could do this for Bush, then maybe you can also do this for the WTO.
The WTO is supposed to be sort of a United Nations of commerce, a conglomeration of all these countries in the world that get together every now and then to discuss trade policies and how exactly goods will be bought and sold throughout the world. Well, I'm sure originally the stated purpose of the WTO was to help these countries who are developing so that, you know, the world community can help raise them out of poverty. In fact, what it's done is it's allowed large corporations to go in and exploit these people even further so that Americans become even wealthier and the people in these countries continue to struggle to get by. And I think that's, at this point, it's upset quite a few people.
Oh, okay, so I gotta try to remember where Sal lives. It's a little bit complicated. There's like this snaking road up over the hills.
And who is Sal?
Sal is a friend who I met in San Diego, and he moved to LA to work in the movie industry, and that's why now he does actually costuming professionally, builds like weird suits out of, you know, pretty much any material you can imagine. And so when we needed a costume, I knew who to call. Yeah, this is it, yeah. Maybe bring him his mail, actually, as long as we're at it here. Yeah, I don't like it. It
Okay.
looks too much like sex stuff instead of it's not very modern looking.
Okay.
It's got this is the future. This isn't about like straps and stuff. That's like dungeons and torture in the past. The costume is a manager's leisure suit. And the idea is that Hank Hardy Unruh, the representative from the World Trade Organization, is going to go and wear this breakaway business suit that's going to be pulled off of him during the middle of the keynote address of the conference. And then a big inflatable phallus is going to emerge from this golden suit. And on the end of it is a TV screen that he uses to manage sweatshops remotely. The reason we got invited to these things is we have a website called gat.org. The gat.org website looks a lot like the WTO website, but it is critical of the WTO. Most people, though, who find gat.org by searching for the World Trade Organization will go without reading it and will send us email directly. So a lot of people ask us weird questions about tariffs and trade, and we try to answer as accurately as we can. And occasionally, invitations come in from official or quasi-official organizations asking for opinions or asking us to attend a conference. And so when they ask, they really think they're talking to the WTO. And we respond by giving them what we think they want, which is the opinions of the WTO as accurately as we can represent them.
You know what I'm thinking, actually, looking at this? Is that maybe this is a zipper?
Yeah.
And then he just unzips it and pulls the thing at the same time.
Oh, that could be really good.
Because to have it burst out of the Velcro, it might not be strong enough to burst out,
yeah.
and then he'd have to pull it.
Right. Part of the thing that gives us the courage to go to Tampere with this really absurd suit is that we already went to Salzburg, Austria, to represent the World Trade Organization at a conference on tariffs and trade. And so there, our representative, the same guy who is Hank Hardy Unruh here, was Dr. Andreas Bickelbauer there. And he gave a lecture that focused on basically doing away with all customs in the name of free trade, like getting rid of the siesta in Spain and Italy so that business hours could be the same.
In Italy, on the other hand, you have a totally different situation in which sleep is done during the day as much as at night, almost.
And allowing people to sell their votes over the internet to the highest bidder so that the barriers to sort of free trade and things like votes were out of the way.
One possible solution is being tested in the field of American politics to streamline the grotesquely inefficient system of elections. And voteauction.com, in turn, employs only 4 people to transmit not merely information, but actual money directly to the consuming voter. It's a forum for people voluntarily to offer their vote to the highest bidder.
And despite giving what we thought was a lecture that would immediately get us booed off stage or, get Bickelbauer maybe even thrown in jail because people would figure out he was an imposter, the exact opposite happened. Everybody was super polite. It didn't seem like everybody even noticed that what he said was so absurd. So far, we thought Bickelbauer would be very extreme and people would react to it and we'd get shut down, and nothing of the sort happened. So this time we just have to really push it, make it totally extreme. I mean, we keep trying to push things further to try to really clarify the positions of the WTO, to make them very legible. There's one back, but this is good. Yeah. So, Andy. It has a terrible siren.
I have to check the web when we get upstairs.
Oh my God, though, what are we gonna do about this? We gotta watch the Patrick video.
It's weird stuff, isn't it?
That's one way of putting it. It's really a problem.
He's about the weirdest I've seen from him ever, I think. It looks pretty.
pretty good on this. Yeah, it's all right.
And what we have here is that we have our Cyber Andy here, who's going to be wearing the suit. And I'm going to be showing all the different ways in which the management leisure suit can be useful in industry today and maximize leisure potential.
Sometimes I don't think they know what the hell to expect out of me. What I'll come up with is frequently not exactly what they had in mind, but it's you know, it fits in perfectly with what they're going to do.
Well, I mean, I came out of a corporate environment and a company that I really gave, you know, a good bit of my soul to over a long period of time, progressively. There were a lot of downsizings, and of course, you know, that the company I was with, I thought was going to take care of me, you know, and I realized that the bottom line is the bottom line, and there really isn't any humanity in corporate structures. So therefore, I hope that maybe being part of the Yes Men might in some way help raise issues about global work issues and social issues that are being brought about by globalization, etc. I grew up in the suburbs here, and then I moved to Troy 6 years ago for a job at the university. There's a place there called Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I teach there. I was moving back home, really, because I'd been away. I'd been on the West Coast for about 12 years.
Wait, what is this?
This is, it's this Simcopter hack. Here it is. I wanted to watch this tape, because this was a tape. I've been cleaning out the archives, you know, and I found this tape in there. I met Andy through a friend, actually, a mutual friend. Actually, two people that we both knew suggested that me and Andy get in contact with one another because we'd both done similar projects.
One of the jobs that I had was at this games company called Maxis that makes SimCity. One of the games they were making at the time was Simcopter. I was in charge of the little people that run around in the game, and I made them wearing nothing but swim trunks, and they'd all be boys, and they'd be running around kissing each other.
So all the people who ordered this very popular video game suddenly were treated to a completely different spectacle. And so he got a lot of press attention for it, and it was seen as a kind of an activist, you know, kind of statement about video games and the sort of macho nature of them.
It all involves the unexpected appearance of some gay kissing musclemen every Friday the 13th.
He's becoming a celebrity of sorts in the computer world, especially the gay computer world.
And then I had done a project using Barbie dolls where we switched the voice boxes of Barbie dolls and G.I. Joes.
Troops, attack that Cobra jet with heavy firepower!
And that ended up in G.I. Joes that said things like, I love to shop with you, and Barbie dolls that said things like, dead men tell no lies. And we got them back on store shelves all over the country in what we called our shop giving program.
We're like Santa Claus, only less radical, because Santa Claus breaks into people's houses. We don't do that.
So that when kids got them at Christmas, they were surprised to find their doll saying something other than what they expected. And the kids thought it was hilarious. You know, they loved having these crazy dolls. We sent out press releases, so it was in the news on Christmas Day, and for the week following, it just went through every kind of media channel imaginable.
The BLO, the mission of the BLO, the Barbie Liberation Organization, the BLO.
Moi, ça m'a fait bien rire. Il a l'air d'un jouet qui dirait « Viens te battre » et en fait, il dit «
I love school, don't you? Let's sing with the band tonight.
Now we're with the Yes Men, we're calling that sort of basic idea identity correction, like saying, okay, these things that are not really presenting themselves honestly or that hide something about their nature that's really scary, we want to bring that out. We want to show that. We want to demonstrate that. And so, like for the WTO, you know, we think that the WTO is doing all of these terrible things that are hurting people, and they're saying the exact opposite. And so we're interested in correcting their identity in the same way that an identity thief steals somebody's identity in order to basically just engage in criminal practices. We target people we see as criminals, and we steal their identity to try to make them honest or to try to present a more honest face. And so, you know, I guess this whole thing has its roots for both me and Andy in stuff that we've been doing for a long time, which is trying to create public spectacles that in some kind of poetic way reveal something about our culture that's profoundly a problem. That must be Sal.
Uh-oh. Oh, dude.
Are you okay?
I fucking lost on that.
Oh, no.
It's been a long day.
Holy shit.
Oh. Well, I probably started it in June or July. So on and off for a good 2 to 3 months. Just a couple more pieces of Velcro and that'll really be it. And yeah, we're near the end of the line.
Okay, look, so here, we're making a list here. Wednesday, we leave for Finland early. So, Sunday, make lecture.
Bigger, oh no, that's a big one. PowerPoint, and then speech, finish.
It's 4:03 a.m. and I guess I'll just keep working until morning. I feel somewhat awake, and then Andy can take over again. We can do a round-the-clock shift, I guess. I'm just trying to add a few slides into the PowerPoint here, because actually a lot of the things that the sort of business leaders of the world say in relation to these issues are actually sort of very similar to what Unruh Hank Hardy says, even though maybe Unruh Hank Hardy is a little bit more frank about it. And in fact, when he talked to CNBC, when he was debating an activist, Barry Coates just sort of agreed with what he said when he said that this is what the WTO does and this is our position. And Barry Coates said, well, that's funny. That's exactly right. So after Salzburg, we got an email asking a representative of the WTO to appear on CNBC Market Wrap Europe. And the producer apparently didn't notice that GATT.org was not the WTO site. And Granwith Hewlettberry, which is another name that Andy just came up with, responded and, of course, said, well, I'd be happy to go on CNBC Market Wrap. And the producer wanted him to debate an anti-globalization protester.
If the WTO is serious about addressing the issues of world poverty, it would do things completely differently than it is now.
Let me bring in Branwith on that. Is that a fair point?
Well, of course it is, but you know, I think Barry, as well as all the other protesters, are simply, in a word, focused too much on reality and on facts and figures. And I think I would have to say that this is a long-term problem that comes down to a problem of education. We have to find a way to convince, perhaps not the protesters, but the protesters' children, to follow thinkers like Milton Friedman and Darwin and so on, rather than what the protesters have been reared on, Trotsky and Robespierre and Abbie Hoffman. And I think that putting the direction of education being put into private hands, concentration of resources in the private sector will naturally lead to this result, and we'll see the protesters' children being reared with an entirely different set of concerns.
But let me bring you in on that, Barry.
I mean, can I just say that these kind of simplistic arguments are really, I mean, too insulting to most people to believe. You know, the fact that we have a choice between Milton Friedman or Abbie Hoffman for where we get our source of economic history and philosophy. There are many, many thinkers from around the world, just not those ones employed by the WTO, that think the World Trade Organization policies are deeply damaging for the development prospects of the poorest countries.
Let me go out to Branwyn.
Yes. Well, I wanted to speak to Granwith's, to Barry's point that there are other thinkers. Well, who actually has the power in the world, and so who is correct in this kind of worldview? I mean, I think the answer is easy. And if you look at the views held by myself, my organization, and many of the decision makers in the world, the powerful people, they happen to coincide with what I'm explaining. And I think this is enough in this sort of view.
Briefly back. So, I mean, what we have here is a picture of the rich and powerful people believe a certain philosophy, which they then propound through the institutions in which they have a powerful voice. And I think this is exactly the model that is being questioned. And increasingly, what there is a very large body of people who are concerned about these rules. The people on the streets of Genoa or in Seattle are not representative of the overall movement. They are the tip of the iceberg. We did a study last year that looked across developing countries and found that in the space of 1 year, in 50 protests, more than 1 million people from developing countries were out trying to change the rules that were being imposed on them by the World Bank and the IMF and locked in through the World Trade Organization.
Right, thank you. We must finish there, unfortunately. Barry Coates, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And also Graham with Helder Batty and also Vernon Ellis on the line from New York.
Je cherche un sac de plastique pour protéger ces costumes.
Parlez-vous anglais? Section 3.
Well, it's not exactly a garment bag, but it's it'll work. Yeah, you think this is very business-like? It's like very official.
Very big money.
Okay, good. That's what I need. I need a big money watch.
So, are you as nervous as you were for Salzburg?
The thing is, like, even with the Salzburg thing, we went into it like, sort of. I mean, we went there really nervous, but the whole time, kind of, it doesn't really sink in until you're actually there.
Right. Well, I think it's good you guys, like, from what I've seen of the speech, it kind of starts out the most normal that it is.
Yeah.
So that he can get comfortable and he can sort of, like, slowly work his way up into it.
Oh, you son of a fucking bitch. Shit.
Yeah, do you have a rag?
Fuck. What, shit, I have one that has shoe polish on it, but that's not right? Screen get a little paint on it?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lawnmower.
It's a little loud, yeah. That's not good.
Forget it. Uh-oh.
Oh, look, it made a new noise. Good, 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 great.
Is it great?
Try it.
And it doesn't work now.
Oh, listen, yes. Okay.
Not great.
Aussi, plus ou moins en même temps. D'accord. Monsieur et Madame Servin, c'est ça? D'accord, merci. Au revoir. Okay, 10 minutes, they're both here. Whew.
Hey, Sal. Thanks.
Bye.
We'll see
Thanks
how it
for
goes.
everything.
Yeah, sleep good and have a good time here.
Yeah.
See ya.
Enjoy.
See you soon.
Move into my room. Have enjoyment. Okay. Is this everything? Wow, look how efficient. Okay.
Efficient. A model of efficiency right here. You have some crap on your face right here. No, over here. Looks better. we arrived last night. You had to take a nap. You had to get some sleep.
Oh, I just crashed, yeah.
And I went and basically scoped out the lecture site. There was a sign on the door that said, Textiles of the Future. Unruh Hank Hardy was the first speaker, Hank Hardy Unruh. And, you know, it all looked sort of official. The coffee cups were out for the morning. So I thought, this is great. I'm all ready. I know exactly where it is. We can go there. I had I like set up a little timetable. I got the, you know, maps of the thing and all the updated conference information. Came back here. Then we went to sleep early, but Hank was snoring immediately. But I wasn't able to sleep at all, really. I just like stayed there awake in bed, and occasionally I'd go in the bathroom and turn on the light and read brochures because I was like just unable to sleep. And eventually I think I fell asleep just before waking up.
Great. So I'm leaving my wallet here. Okay, let's go.
It's 8 o'clock.
I think I really will leave it here.
Are you coming? Hank, it's a little early to get up.
It's all right.
I mean, I thought this was vacation.
Like what?
Vacation?
I know. They take me to Finland.
Let me take care of this egg for you. I'll just peel it.
That would be nice, thank you.
Well, you know, we're behind schedule.
Are we?
Well, a little bit. It's after 8, and I really wanted to be at the venue at 8.
Okay.
But we're doing fine.
Is it
either
after
way.
8?
It is after 8.
Yeah. You know, pretend that.
Huh. Great. We're early.
Oh, good. Hello. I'm Hank Hardy Unruh. I'm from the...
Oh, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We were expecting you.
Oh, good. It's not 9:30? No, it's 8:30, right?
But you will have a...
It's 8:30 now.
9:30.
Is it?
It is. It's 9:30, yes.
Now?
Yes. No, yeah.
The time is 9:30?
Yeah, yes. Almost. Well,
I'm on it.
9:27 at the moment.
Oh my God, we're an hour off. Oh my God, thank you. Okay. Well, we have to.
Anyhow,
we start in 3
Do
minutes.
Do they know that he's going on now?
Yeah. Well, Person knows I was expecting.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Okay, we.
Are you coming to? Have you registered? Are you?
I'm his assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this
we're
also.
both
Yeah.
working with him. We have to go take care of a few things now.
Okay.
Okay. Would you like to join the dinner?
Yes, please. Okay. Or is there a fee or?
No, it's included.
Okay. Yes. We'll join the dinner. That's great. Okay.
Wow.
Well, we must hurry, I guess.
Yes.
So, please, yes.
Actually, no, you can't go in right now because you have to first take care of that business. Oh, God. See, we're an hour early. We thought we had an hour off, so
I have to do something.
Yes.
So
he has to make a very
minutes.
important phone call right now.
It'll take me 5 minutes. And
Right now.
yes, I'm sorry.
But you will have your presentation starting after 2 minutes.
Yes, please tell him that I'll be 3 minutes late.
Okay.
Where's the detail?
Jesus, fuck. Okay. How come we didn't know that?
I don't know. That's really incredible. Come on. Okay, yeah.
Jeez, this is terrible. It's the stupidest. I can't. It's an hour's difference. The time zone is different here. It's unbelievable. How the fuck can that happen?
Okay, there, that's done now. Okay, real quick, the shirt, the underwear. Gold underwear. Okay. Do I have to put something through here? No. Okay.
You go?
Mm-hmm.
Your testicles hanging out?
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay, great. Oh, God. Okay. Great. Got a little air in it. Okay, now the pants. Hurry.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you. I'm so sorry.
Our program for this morning, I have arriving from Helsinki and they were mentioned before.
Thank you. Terribly sorry.
Yes, I have a presentation.
Terribly sorry. I think the World Trade Organization is supposed to know about time zones, but
Somebody said, isn't there a time difference? And I said, nope, all of Europe, same time zone.
So that convinced us all. And we were convinced that it was the right time. And we woke up this morning and we were running 5 or 10 minutes late and then figured out that, you know, the laptop wasn't working. No, maybe we could switch the order.
Could we have somebody else go and then I go later?
And they said, okay, I think we can do that. And then they called the coffee people and they talked to the coffee people to see if the coffee was possible.
That was it.
Now I have the pleasure at least to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Anthony Kundu, who is the Master of Business Administration in the University of Texas, Austin. Anthony Kundu grew up in Montepolis, Texas, the son of a cattle rancher. His early experience with his father's business embodied to him a lasting interest in trade, and after obtaining his master's of business administration degree, he joined the WTO organization in 1998. Since then, he has spoken on trade matters before a variety of forums. He is currently living in Paris. And the title from the Andrew's presentation is The Future Textiles, the Future of a Lifetime and the Lifetime of the Future.
Thank you very much. Is this one? It's quite an honor to be here in Tampere, addressing this audience of the most outstanding textile workers in the world today. I see on all the faces here today a touching childlike eagerness to tackle the biggest textiles questions in the world. How do we at the WTO fit in? What we want to do at the WTO is help you achieve your dollar results. And in just 20 minutes from now, I'm going to show you the WTO's very own solution to two of the very biggest problems in management. One, maintaining rapport with distant workforce, and two, maintaining healthful amounts of leisure. This solution, appropriately enough, is based in textiles. But how did workers ever get to be a problem? Before unveiling our solution, I'd like to talk a bit about the history of the worker management problem. We all know about the American Civil War, at least in the US. It was the bloodiest, least profitable war in the history of our country. A war in which unbelievably huge amounts of money went right down the drain, and all for textiles. By the 1860s, the South was utterly flush with cash. It had recently benefited from the cotton gin, an invention that took the seeds out of cotton and the South out of its pre-industrial past. Hundreds of thousands of workers, previously unemployed in their countries of origin, were given useful jobs in textiles. Into this rosy picture of freedom and boon stepped, you guessed it, the North. Now, some Civil War apologists have said that the Civil War, for all its faults, at least had the effect of outlawing an involuntarily imported workforce model of work. Now, this model is, of course, a terrible thing. I myself am an abolitionist. But in fact, there is no doubt that left to their own devices, markets would have eventually replaced slavery with cleaner sources of labor. To prove my point, please join me on what Albert Einstein used to call a thought experiment. Suppose involuntarily imported labor had never been outlawed, that slaves still existed, and that it were easy to own one. What do you think it would cost today to profitably maintain a slave, say, here in Tampere? Let's see. A finished clothing set costs $50 at the very least. 2 meals from McDonald's cost about $10. The cheapest small room probably runs for about $250 a month. To function well, you have to pay for your slave's health care. If its country of origin was polluted, for example, that might run very expensively. And of course, what with child labor laws here in Finland, much of the youth market is simply not available. Now leave the same slave back at home, let's say Gabon. In Gabon, $10 pays for 2 weeks of food. $250 pays for 2 years of housing, not a month at best. $50 pays for a lifetime of budget clothing. And healthcare is, of course, cheaper. On top of it all, youth can be gainfully employed without restriction. The biggest benefit of the remote labor system, though, is to the slave, him or herself, because in Gabon, there is no need for the slave not to be free. This is primarily because there are no one-time slave transport costs to recoup, and so the potential losses from fleeing are limited to the slave's rudimentary training. So since the slave can be free, he or she suddenly becomes a worker rather than a slave. Also terrific for morale is that slaves, workers, have the luxury of remaining in their native habitat and don't have to relocate to places where they would be subject to such unpleasantries as homesickness and racism. I think it's clear from our little thought experiment that if the North and South had simply let the market sort it out without protectionist tariffs, they would have quickly given up slavery for something more efficient anyhow. By forcing the issue, the North not only committed a terrible injustice against the freedom of the South, but also deprived slavery of its natural development into remote labor. Had the leaders of the 1860s United States understood what our leaders understand today, the Civil War would never have happened. In a world where the headquarters of a company might be in New York, Hong Kong, or Espoo, Finland, and the workers are in Gabon, Rangu, or Estonia, how does a manager maintain proper rapport with the workers? And how does he or she ensure from a distance that workers perform their work in an ethical fashion? I'm about to show you an actual prototype of the WTO solution to 2 major management problems of today. Now, we all know that not even the best workplace design can help even the most astute manager keep track of workers. What you need is a solution that enables complete rapport with workers, especially when they're located far away. Mike, would you help me a moment? Thank you. This is much better, much more comfortable. This is the WTO's answer to 2 of the major management problems, and we're calling it the management leisure suit. It's the 2 problems again, how to maintain close rapport with distant workers, and how to remain comfortable and increase leisure activities. How does the management leisure suit work, besides being extremely comfortable, as I can guarantee you? Well, allow me to describe the suit's core features. This is the EVA, the Employee Visualization Appendage. It's an instantly deployable hip-mounted device with totally hands-free operation that allows the manager to see his employees directly right here. Signals communicating the exact amounts and quality of physical work are transmitted not only visually right here, but directly through electric channels implanted directly into the manager. The workers, for their part, are fitted with corresponding transmitting chips, that are implanted humanely directly into the shoulder. But the other equally important achievement of the MLS has to do with leisure. In the United States, leisure, another word for freedom really, has been decreasing steadily since the 1970s. The management leisure suit permits the manager to reverse this trend by letting him do his work anywhere while remaining in complete touch with the workers, physically sensing what's going on in the workforce on the floor through channels implanted directly into the manager. Again, the manager sees the employees, but also feels what they're feeling and can select where to focus in the workplace environment. So, in conclusion, I'd like to ask, is this a science fiction scenario? The answer is no. Everything we've seen here, everything we've been talking about is entirely possible today. We can always look forward on the highways of progress towards ever new horizons with cooperation and mutual delight in the fruits of prosperity. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. for this very good presentation.
Thank you.
I think it was a good presentation from WTO side for demonstration.
Something we're trying to do more and more is, yep.
Sure. Are there any questions with regard to the next given in this moment? You can ask questions concerning all speakers up to now.
I wasn't depressed by people not reacting. I wasn't depressed by people just swallowing it and not asking questions, because I thought, well, that shows that you need some sort of control, because here you can, you know, the WTO, me, can come in and say these amazingly hideous things to this group of the most educated people, like the top 0.1% education-wise people in the entire world, in a developed country like Finland. These people all have PhDs or advanced degrees. And you can say the most atrocious things, and nobody will really react, and nobody will really care. It's like, you know, what can't corporations get away with?
Det går en buss från järnvägsstationen till flygplatsen.
So where are we?
Well, we're arriving in Helsinki right now. We left the conference this morning. It was just, it just driven us completely mad after dinner last night. I think we had our fill at dinner. I had to actually leave a little bit early. I went over to the table where where Hank Hardy had to sit with the big men and eat, and I told him that we needed to leave because we had a telephone meeting with Mobutu Oblongatu immediately.
Right.
Hi. Sorry about in a minute. We're supposed to meet Manduka Jabango at 10 o'clock. And then we both started laughing, which is really not convenient for the context. So we left, and then we just decided that basically, like, we couldn't figure out what else we could possibly do at this conference. So we just thought, well, let's go to Helsinki instead.
So this is the paper on the front page. It just discovered. It said it says there's a seminar at the university, and somebody talked about controlling remote workers with electrical impulsions, impulsiari, and then you turn to the page, and that's what you get.
And this right here represents the World Trade Organization. This is the World Trade
Organization.
Right.
I went down to these Mexican border towns in the mid-'80s. They were called maquiladores, and when they first had, you know, the first trade agreements between Mexico and the United States, and everyone was saying how this is going to raise Mexico out of poverty, and things were going to be so great, and within 10 years, they'd all be driving shiny new cars in Mexico. And I went down there and saw the incredible poverty in these Mexican border towns. 15 years later, I went back. Not a damn thing had changed. Here's all these workers working for all these American corporations, and you just go across the street and you found people living in the same horrid conditions, the same poverty existing, and you had to ask, well, who was benefiting from this? Well, who benefited were these American corporations. During the 1990s, they became even more wealthy. They posted record profits, larger record profits, and the people in Mexico just continued to suffer. It was all a big scam.
Is this the one?
No. You got the wrong one.
Shit.
Will WTO stand up?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's got pictures. They're nice, too.
Yeah, they actually look okay at that size.
His mom isn't in... Wow, but he plays one on TV.
Yeah, this is basically the core of what we do.
All of these newspapers and magazines have articles on the yes men, and this is why we are doing these things. This is why we go and do these conferences. It's not for the 200 people or the 100 people that might see us give the lecture, although we'd like them to come away with an interesting experience from the lecture. The reason we do it is so that people who read Bazaar magazine or the New York Times or Fortune or Harper's can read about it in the mainstream press. I mean, this is how millions of people could read about it and potentially get turned on to some of the ideas of anti-globalization.
One of the problems with the Fortune thing is that it's in this well, Fortune, it's like read by business people and accountants and that kind of thing, and that's exactly who we're supposed to be talking to in Australia in May. It's an accounting conference. So it's a little worrisome.
Do you need a new shirt and one that's not wrinkled?
Yeah.
Will that be good with your thing?
Yeah.
With yours, do you think it'll work with your suit?
This one's extra large. Yeah, they'll all work with my suit. It's terrible.
Striped though, is that okay?
Yeah. Sure, it's okay.
Well, then why don't you go get a shirt then?
I'll just get this. Wait.
Yeah.
It's oh, it's not very much cotton.
How much is it?
I hate that.
35%?
35%. It's like, no, it's fine.
It doesn't wrinkle much then. That's nice about that. You can
I'll just
pack
wear
it in your
it.
bag
Okay.
without a lot of wrinkle.
All right.
I mean, the thing is, like, there's a question of whether he's, like, at what point he recognizes you doesn't really matter. What we want is that, that moment when he does recognize you. So if he recognizes you here and sees that you're in the room, then he'll be looking back and forth at you at the screen. And at that point, if he recognizes you, we better say something. No, I think it's down here, but I don't know. Where is it again? Oh, it's right over. It must be right down Morris. Remember we walked? It's on this end of this line right here.
Andy, hi.
Hey,
How are you
hi.
doing?
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Good. Great. Yeah.
We're in London, and we were just at the offices of the World Development Movement, where we talked to Barry Coates, who's the director of the World Development Movement, and who showed up on CNBC Market Wrap Europe debating our friend here, Cranwith Hewlett-Berry, about the prospects of WTO and globalization.
We kind of expected him maybe to have a glimmer of recognition immediately, and he didn't. Okay. Then we put on the tape, and he laughed at how horribly stupid it was, but he never realized that this wasn't really a representative of WTO. Even when he saw me like this, right next to it, and then we switched seats, and he still didn't notice, and then I had to put my face next to the thing and like go,
yeah.
Let's just pause it here.
Okay.
Hit
stop.
Is there a pause?
Stop button.
There's no pause.
I don't know what I could have said after that clip. I mean,
Right.
really. It's Where did they get this guy from?
Afterwards,
might have been my first comment.
So, did you ever figure out where they got the guy from?
I understood that he was in the External Relations Department of the WTO.
Right.
That's what they thought, too.
That's what they thought as well. But as it happens, he wasn't.
Yeah.
In fact,
just take one more close look. Oh, wait, can we, is this reverse? Yeah.
No. I wasn't going to mention the likeness.
You were being very polite, weren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it as a spoof.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
That's it. Good. We weren't sure how you would react.
We were really hoping you wouldn't be too offended. We were like, oh no.
Oh, hell no. Oh, that's great. That's really good. Like, I was wondering, because I hadn't seen that guy before, and I did know some of the WTO external relations people, and I was thinking, my God, they really put up a right one this time.
We wanted to talk to Barry Coates as well because he has a lot of statistics and information about globalization that we thought would be useful for the lecture in Australia.
All of the WTO agreements, bar one, are all about restricting what governments can do. And so essentially, the whole trading system is built on the premise that the companies trading internationally, investing internationally, are going to be preyed upon by nasty governments. And really, I mean, what we have is an international system that is entirely the reverse. What's got squeezed out of the system is democracy, is development, is environment, is the kind of human values, which really ought to be the center of what we're trying to do. You know, we don't kind of live to trade. Yeah. You know, we live to have decent lives, and that ought to be the goal of our trade policy, not maximizing trade or getting rid of any impediments to it.
Oh. Okay. That's good. Got that. Need to get the video. And I'll be off. Let's see.
One of the big reasons why I'm up here is that we have the Australia gig for the Yes Men. I did a animation about you know, the recycling of post-consumer waste into hamburgers and fast food. So here we go. The answer to the world's sustainable food future is in recycling. And since over half our nutrients taken in are eliminated, valuable resources are at risk. By using post-consumer waste, Reburger allows essential nutrients to be offered to developing countries for greatly reduced cost.
Oh.
Okay.
It gets better.
Oh. Wait,
what was that?
Was that in outer space?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think it does the job. I think it does the job.
We're here in New York because Herb Alpert of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass gave us this award, bunch of money to do what, you know, the kind of stuff that we do. So we had to come here and have dinner with him and you know, get the money and thank everybody, and it was very nice, and it's very surprising, but we're very pleased. I think we can say we're very pleased.
Yeah, it was a big chunk of money. It's going to bankroll a lot of future activities, like going to Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we got this chunk of money, but of course now we're also using this opportunity and this hotel room here in New York to meet up with Matt, who's been working on the PowerPoint presentation for Australia, and to meet up with Patrick, who's been working on animations for Australia as well. Fortunately, we were lucky too because Snafu was in town, and he's sort of a European yes man who's been sort of circulating in the European scene doing yes man type activities. But it's a good thing he's here in the States so he can go to Plattsburgh with us.
Yes, trade liberalization is a religious undertaking, a project of faith, a crusade of sorts, and it has been ever since its founders declared that financial success comes from God and that wealth is a sign of divine favor. Now, why is starvation a problem? First, the facts. As we all know, investment and exports have been on the rise in the third world.
There's some bad news. There's some really bad news that came down in the last 2 days. The conference in Australia, the people from the conference in Australia wrote an email saying that the conference has been canceled because of low enrollment. In some ways, it's really kind of, I guess, a nice thing that there was under-enrollment, because it was really a hideous conference, and it seemed like a really dire thing that people would actually want to go to that thing. And so it's really encouraging for humanity that the conference actually has been canceled. But at the same time, it's really made things difficult for us. And so I wrote back to them as Hildegard West, and I asked them if they would please set up another venue, because Kenneth Spratt is already en route to Australia. So right now, I'm waiting to see if they come back to us with the suggestion that they'll actually have a public presentation. But since the conference has been canceled, now the event in Plattsburgh is kind of like, it might be the only venue we have for this lecture. And so it's really important now that we get the lecture done and sort of together. So it's no longer a dress rehearsal, it's actually like the final, you know, production. It's about time.
What?
I was so worried about your shoes.
About what?
This guy brought shoes. He brought real shoes for you, look.
Do we have the hamburgers yet?
We have to pick them up.
But you mentioned...
They're ordered. Yeah, Richard ordered them already.
That's fantastic.
Pick them up, right? Great.
Basically, there's this guy named Richard Robbins who I met at a conference about a month ago, and he has written several books on sort of globalization.
He was interested in having the WTO come speak at the economics department, and only he really knows that this isn't really the WTO. Everybody else will think that it's the WTO.
But another good thing is that it will be a hungry audience, so there's a good chance they are going to eat those hamburgers, which we weren't sure was actually going to happen with the accountants in Australia. You know, I think for look, I should probably carry these in.
Okay. Can you do it?
Yeah, I'm thinking that that you probably shouldn't be associated with the hamburgers.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. You have many education choices, and we're all grateful at the WTO that you have chosen to listen to us for an hour and to our messages about things that will impact everyone. I'd like to say that by joining us here, you're essentially embarking with us on a mission. I'd like to start right at the beginning. As I was saying, trade liberalization is a project of faith. It's a crusade. And in any crusade, there are problems. There are invading armies, there are big blockades. And one of the problems that we run into in this crusade is starvation in the third world. You may recognize that symbol from those green bins you see, you know, where cans, bottles, blah, blah. The kind of recycling I'm talking about that we have developed at the WTO is not really this irrelevant kind of recycling where the target, individual consumers like you and me, or of non-edible industrial products, is such a tiny part of the problem. Rather, we're talking about really recycling what counts, where it counts. To begin to understand the theory behind this, you must first realize that the human body is not really very efficient. When ingesting heavy foods, only about 20% of the nutrients are absorbed by the alimentary passageway, while the other 80% finds itself expelled in post-consumer byproducts. Already 20 years ago, NASA scientists began to tap into this nutritional gold mine by developing filters that could transform their astronauts' waste into healthy, hygienic, and even delicious food once again. With the use of this technology, a single hamburger, for example, can be eaten more than 10 times, providing a cumulative total of 3 times the nutritional value of the original fresh hamburger. Now again, a certain amount of cultural openness is required as we investigate solutions. And I'd love to take any questions. Yes, you've been...
Coming from a third world country, I found most of what you said pretty offensive. It's as if everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. And who is to say whether people in the third world want a burger?
You know, I in my heart sometimes find it to agree that cultures deserve equal consideration, perhaps to develop on their own terms. But, you know, we're different. We're culturally different. We're rich, they're poor. This is the most humane solution we can come up with that stays within the market logic.
If it's all right, I could answer a portion of that question as well. And this answers the question about desire for the product, because the biggest growth areas are the developing world. And so, in fact, people do want the product. We do have a kind of video presentation about this that I came prepared to show. It's not, the program isn't actually completely ready yet. So, as you can see here, there's a consumer in the first world entering McDonald's and consuming a hamburger. And afterward, this is a process we're all familiar with. I don't need to explain it to anyone. But you see, it's rendered out in this style because studies have shown that consumers are most responsive to 3D animation right now, particularly in developing cultures. So as you can see, it goes through a piping system, a kind of, and this isn't unusual. We do this for oil. We could do this for food as well. And as you can see, it goes back up through the plumbing and emerges in a McDonald's. Now, the part of this video that isn't completed yet is the filtering process. There will be a very well-rendered filtering and as you can see, this might answer somebody's question from before, but at the McDonald's in a developing country, and in fact in this country as well, you would be able to choose the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 would no longer refer to combinations of food, but rather just the number of times the product had been recycled. We're lucky to be able to partner with the World Trade Organization, which you know, has slightly different goals. Of course, McDonald's goals are to profit and grow. And we hope that we can provide a nutritious and tasty product in the process.
Our goals are to help McDonald's profit and grow and all other corporations. So.
I think you guys, like the WTO is kind of lacking kind of like a human element, you know, like if you saw, have you ever seen starving people?
In pictures, yes.
Okay, but tell me, if you saw somebody starving to death, you would probably think a lot, you know, like that would kind of hit you in a sensitive, you know, place to say like, oh, well, you know, maybe markets and money and this and that don't really mean as much, and actually like feeding people means a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, well, it is true that there's a personal side of it that I have to say in the WTO there are questions that we have about this as human beings, but we're not as subject, we have a kind of firmer grasp on theory. We are able, fortunately, to simply direct world trade in a much more theoretical way in collaboration with our colleagues at the largest corporations. So, you know, yes, probably if I went to these countries, I'd feel, I'd think about things a little differently, perhaps, but at the same time, I don't think I would forget all my schooling. I don't think I would forget, you know, all these theories and so on. So. Perhaps one day I'll do that.
This is a moneymaker, correct?
Yes. Well, it's a moneymaker, starvation solver, sure.
And how much does McDonald's pay you to come here and speak this garbage to us?
Did I see a mouse with an ear growing out of its back?
How are you going to get around the cultural and legal implications of cannibalism and basically asking us to recycle shit?
I think there's no ethical behavior. I mean, you don't have morals, that's what I think. I mean, that's all. I mean, I can't believe the corporate world is run by you guys because
I can't help but feel burned that way that the way I feed my cat with my dog, that's actually better. And the people you're talking about, you know, I mean, we're talking about people here, aren't we? We're talking about people, and that seems we're giving them lower. We're giving them shit, literally.
The reality is that we already treat people in the third world far worse than we treat our domestic animals. It's not saying it's right. It's just saying that's the reality.
Well, after thinking about it for a little while, it seems the Plattsburgh lecture just went great, and it went exactly the way we originally expected these lectures to work, which was that at a certain point, it was like a light bulb's going off in the heads of the different people in the audience, and they were realizing that it was just too crazy to be real, and yet it was sort of based in reality. And so, you know, they started throwing globes at us. They got angry, they got frustrated. It worked exactly like we thought it would.
They don't ask you if you believe in it. You don't get to vote on the World Trade Organization treaties. They don't let you vote on it. They don't give you a say in it. They let you listen to the one-sided propaganda. Name me a single columnist in America who doesn't stand up and cheer under the banner of so-called free trade. There's no public discussion. There's no dissent in any of the parties, political parties. There's no debate, there's no discussion, there's no vote. In fact, the only nation which has called for a vote is Brazil, and already, which is saying that it will not sign any more trade treaties without a plebiscite of its people. And the world trade barons are losing their damn minds trying to prevent this type of democracy from spreading planet-wide. Because once people know what this stuff is about and get to vote on it, no one's going to vote themselves into poverty.
Here we go, Australia country code. Oops. Oh, Australia, 61. It's 61.
61. Hi, this is Kenneth Spratt from the WTO.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Where are you now?
I'm in New York at the moment.
New York, are you?
Yes.
Kenneth Spratt just called the person who's coordinating Spratt's visit.
I'm due in Hong Kong the week after this, and that date is firm, but my travel to Australia is as yet not firm. Yeah.
She's actually, turns out, been emailing all these people and basically calling journalists and getting people to attend his lecture, and she fully expects him to attend because she had spoken to Hildegard West, Spratt's assistant, and Hildegard West had told her that everything was on, and Spratt was definitely going. So now we just decided we really have to go to honor this arrangement with Australia. So it's back on now after we totally thought it was off.
And instead of giving this lecture that we've been planning for like 9 months, we're gonna, like, you know, just disband the WTO.
Shouldn't we get you a pair of shoes that actually are reasonable? I mean, they just don't look like dress shoes. They look like wrestling shoes. All right, well, there are no shoes here for you. Never mind.
No, shoes are out now. Time.
Uh-huh.
Around thin, yep.
Oh, wait, did you try this?
Yeah.
I did a set of these with an inkjet, and they just don't look as real. Something about them, they look
these look
kind of handmade. I printed off some letterhead for you,
Nice.
but you guys already saw that, and I just kept it real simple.
That's perfect.
So that it would show up well on the fax.
That is the most ridiculous photo. It's like something really weird about this maniacal public relations guy. Wow, and a little bit.
Little magnetic strip in the back.
Really beautiful.
Wow.
You know what I did? I went to Google, and I went to Google image search, and I typed in ID card, and you wouldn't believe the numbers of pictures of ID cards that show up on the web. And I just went through and took a little bit from each one. You know, it said, all right, this one's got like a little barcode at the bottom, and this one uses the logo over here, and
That's so nice. Down under. I know.
Well, airplane. Where's the rental car area?
No, I don't know. I'm just really nervous because, I don't know, this feels different from all the other things that we've done. It's not like the same kind of play, fun, crazy, weird.
impossible stuff. This is like sincere, you know? It's like about replacing the WTO with something better.
Do you think that satire is more fun?
Yeah, definitely.
I got this feeling that it's less, for some reason, maybe it's less fun to be sincere.
But it is less fun, isn't it?
In a way, yeah. Maybe it's more fun to be satirical than serious.
Yeah.
It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, and this is the big day for Kenneth Rung Spratt to go talk to CPA Australia and close down the WTO. It's kind of an exciting day for us, and we finally get to shut it down. I'm writing the local phone number for this cell phone on the business card, so if we give these to journalists or anybody else who wants to contact Mr. Spratt, they'll be able to do it in the next couple days.
And besides
we
that...
have to leave in about 10 minutes, though.
I know. I'm just gonna do as little as possible. Okay, let's just go by there. We have some time yet.
Yep. Let's just keep walking. Just walk straight.
Don't look.
Don't look.
Don't turn left. Don't. Oh.
Okay, no, don't do that.
Uh-oh. Answer it.
Hello, Michael Bonanno here. Hi, Jane. How are you? All right, then. I guess we'll see you in just a few minutes. And do we just come up to level 3, then? Great. Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, shit. This is the building.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Sorry for the confusion and problems and everything else.
It's to be expected these days, I think. No, thanks for going out of your way to arrange this. This is really terrific. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the organizers for going out of their way to create this panel, this luncheon, in the face of some odds, the conference having been canceled, of course. And I'd especially like to begin by apologizing for a rather sudden change in the program, consequent upon a rather dramatic development in Geneva yesterday. I originally intended to transmit today an upbeat report on some new technologies that affect agribusiness in a global sense. Instead, I find myself the messenger of some rather disturbing news. The WTO will be issuing a public statement in detail by the end of the week, but the die has been cast. As of September 2002, having seen the effects of policies whose only intent was to bring greater prosperity and peace, the World Trade Organization, in its present form, will cease to exist. Over the next 2 years, we of the WTO will endeavor to refound our organization along different lines, based in a different understanding of the purposes of world trade. The new organization will have as its foundation and basis the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, upon which we feel we can make a good foundation to ensuring that the organization will have human rather than business interests as its bottom line.
My reaction was one of total surprise. We're expecting a speech more based on what the World Trade Organization does in its relation to Australian trade. It sort of blew me out of the water when the announcement was made that the World Trade Organization is significantly reinventing itself to focus on issues relating to people as opposed to economics, something that hopefully could be of significant benefit to the poor and needy throughout the world in all the developing countries.
The UN estimates that poor countries, the poorest countries in the world, lose approximately $2 billion a day because of unjust trade rules, many of them instituted by our own organization. And this is 14 times the amount that they receive in aid from developed countries.
I thought the speech itself was compelling in terms of its information. I was astounded to find that they're actually going to dismantle the WTO. I was also amazed to see that there was an admission that perhaps it had failed. it's going to have a huge effect on international business, and particularly for us as an organisation, I feel. The hardest thing I find will be the balance that, let's say, the US, EU and Japan, in terms of being major components of the world economy, the effect, will they really change in terms of this new organisation, and will there actually be genuine change and perhaps a benefit, to the world's poorest countries? I must admit I'm a cynic with regards to that occurring.
Liberalization, the process of liberalization, often enables the knowledge of the poor to be converted into the property of global corporations. Specific statistics are rather shocking. Out of 26,000 patents applied for in Africa in 2000 and 2001, only 31 were from residents of Africa. The rest were from residents of first world countries. 31 out of 26,000 patent applications.
It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting something on agribusiness and what the World Trade Organisation does, but I'd have to say I believe it's fairly positive. Because I think that, as the gentleman said, the strong are getting stronger and the weak are getting weaker, and you can't let that keep on going. And even we notice it here in Australia, where some of the trade arrangements that are made, if you're powerful, you can get whatever you like, and if you're not, you can't. And it's just the world with the population we've got can't keep going that way. So I think it was fairly positive, and I think it's a very brave decision by an organisation to admit that they've been going down the wrong track and to dissolve themselves and start to look for something different, and I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Disparity is growing between rich and poor. The richest fifth have 80% of the world's income, and the poorest fifth have 1%. This gap, we all know this figure, but we don't always remember that this gap has actually doubled since 1960. More and more thinkers are therefore noting that there is no evidence that liberalization favors growth or benefits the poor.
I think we're all generally aware of increases in poverty and low living standards and issues faced by developing countries. And what Mr. Spratt, I think, had to say today really gives a terrific sign of hope for what I think we all aspire to, and that's a global economy that benefits all people.
Now, after protracted and detailed review of current trade policy, the World Trade Organization has decided to effect a cessation of all operations to be accomplished over the next 4 months, culminating by the end of September.
Well, I think that the yes men have kind of played out their course in relation to the World Trade Organization for the moment. You never know when we might get another invitation. We were lucky to be able to provide a sort of sense of closure by ending the WTO. We also hope that other people will just start doing the same things in all kinds of different contexts, impersonating whoever holds power that needs to be criticized. So if the opportunity arises, we're just going to keep doing it. We're going to go and be the yes men again, or I should say be the WTO again at another event. The future is bright for the yes men. The future of the world is a different story.
No, this isn't the way he usually dresses. He works for the World Trade Organization, the WTO. He works, see, we're at a conference, and he's demonstrating a new kind of technology.
This is, well, it's a device to measure employee working in less developed countries. There's a thing here where on this screen I can see
See, he watches people working there.
And they have little devices that give them shocks. It's just regular fabric. In the future, it'll be sensitive smart fabric. It's a little hot, but that one looks better.